Hi guys, Alec, Peirce, Vintage Scuba. Here we go again. Now, a lot of you have been asking, what do I look for when I'm interested in buying vintage gear? Or do I get vintage gear? So I'm going to try to give you some tips on buying and maybe selling, trading, and getting your own vintage gear. Because not only I know a lot of you want to collect some, you're collectors, but also some of you are interested in trying vintage gear. So there are a lot of things you need to know. Sometimes you see a really interesting looking regulator. You go, wow, that's in really good shape. And you get it, and then you find out there are no parts available, haven't been for many years, can't be serviced, can't be used. So now you have a really attractive piece of brass with some rubber on it. That's not a lot of value. It hasn't met your expectations. So I'm going to try, if I can, in a few episodes here on buying vintage gear to give you some tips. One of the tips is very simple. When you see something advertised, you will sometimes see the letters NIB, Norman, Indiana, Denmark.
B.
B.
Bravo.
It's not D, it's B.
It's B. You said
Yeah,
Denmark.
bravo. I didn't say Denmark.
You did.
No, the video said NIB, NIB. Now, when you see those three letters, usually in capitals, NIB, that's a good one to get. Secondly, it's also going to cost you more. Now, because of what NIB stands for. A lot of you know this already, but NIB means new in box. That's right. If you're looking for a piece of vintage gear and you see a vintage regulator advertised and it says in the title or in the description NIB, what it means is new in box. That regulator, regardless if it's 1960, 1950, or 1970, that regulator is brand spanking new in the box. That's what it's supposed to mean. And if it has NIB, that's the way it ought to be when it arrives. There's only one additional better phrase in NIB, and that's SNIB, sealed new in box. Now, years and years ago, the regulators didn't come sealed. They came in a box, a cardboard box. And you could open it and close it and look at it and so on. So they weren't often sealed. Today, many items for a variety of reasons, security, medical issues and so on, are sealed. So if you see SNIB, that means sealed and new in box. But NIB, new in box, is quite common. So what does it mean? Well, it means exactly that. When you get that regulator, you're going to get something like this. It looks like this. It's going to be a box. A Voit, and it usually says on the box, because this is a box that was shipped from the manufacturer, shipped from Voit in the 60s. It's going to say Dolphin 2. It may have the serial number. In this case, there's the serial number, and it may be there might be a bit of tape that held it shut originally. But when you open this box and you take a look inside, there you go. There's a brand spanking new Swimaster Voit regulator, new in box. Now that doesn't mean, by the way, that it's going to be perfect, because it may depend a little bit on where the box was stored. So in this particular case, I look at this and I can see that there's a little bit of corrosion, not really so much corrosion, but marks on the chrome, but just a wipe with my finger takes it right off. So this is a great example. Now, it also doesn't mean, unfortunately, NIB is good, right? It doesn't also mean necessarily that it's going to be ready to go. Just add water, as I say, because it's probably been in this box for 50 or 60 years, unsealed, untouched. So the rubber parts have dried, some are probably stuck to the metal. It may not be operational. In fact, it's probably not operational. And even if it appears to be operational, it should be checked quickly before you actually take it out and try it. But that's what NIB means. Why is it important? Well, because first of all, it establishes the condition of the regulator. Essentially, what it means is the regulator is new. It may be possible for a diver somewhere to have a nice regulator, and he happens to have a box, because I have many empty boxes, nothing in them, and he would put this regulator into a box and sell it as NIB. It's not wrong, it's just not, you just have to be a little bit careful, a bit of buyer beware. Check the serial number. In this case, it matches the serial number, so I know this is the right came in that box. Okay? The other reason this is kind of important, if you're a collector, as opposed to looking for something to use, if you're a collector, the box makes it more valuable. That's right. In fact, in some cases, the boxes are quite valuable. Let me give you an example. This little regulator is called the Little Gem. I think, no, this is called the Dolphin. Similar, but it's called the Dolphin. It's an okay regulator, definitely a vintage regulator from the early 60s. Nice little regulator, and maybe you had one if you're older. And the regulator might be worth, let's say the regulator was 50, 60 bucks. They're not worth a whole lot, these old regulators. This is an old, very simple, very cheap tilt valve. You know what that is from my... is that vintage or is that tip tips? Yeah, tilt valves, you know what that's about. No, that's tip tips. Anyway, another playlist. of mine. So you know, this is not an expensive regulator. Let's say the regulators were $50. Okay, so if a collector who perhaps is collecting, whether he's collecting regulators from the 60s, whether he's collecting old single hose, maybe he's collecting Voit. And there are collectors in all those different categories. So let's assume there's a Voit collector out there, and here's a really nice example of this Dolphin Voit single hose regulator, but he doesn't have a box. He'll buy this box from you for $100. Yeah, the box sometimes is worth more than a regulator. So there's several reasons why NIB is attractive. Keep your eyes open for that, okay? Now, also NIB can be really attractive. Healthways was a big company at one time, and you can see that their boxes were really attractive. And now they went out of business in the 60s, but this is a typical example of Healthways packaging. This box is not perfect. NIB doesn't mean a perfect box. All that indicates is that supposedly the regulator is in new condition because it came in the box. But there, you can see the box is very attractive. Pictures on different sides, and on the back, some more advertising for their products. Very attractive. And you can see the plastic here. They actually had a plastic sheet over the regulator to keep it clean, and for display purposes, you didn't have to open the box to see what was in it. In this particular case, the plastic is pretty much gone. There's several reasons for that. These boxes were stacked up and stored in somebody's garage somewhere and weren't treated perfectly. The other reason is that this plastic is old plastic. You may remember, if you're old enough, in the days when plastic was frowned upon, plastic was scorned. Oh, that's made of plastic. Not anymore. Plastic is in fact the way to go, better than metal in many cases. But in the old days, the plastic wasn't very good. It didn't stand up very long before it cracked and fell apart. That's the case here. So there's another example of a new in-box regulator. Now here's another one here, and this one's pretty neat. This is quite old. This is an old Sportsways water lung, model number 1301. And let's take a peek and see what's in here. And you see that here's a fine example of an old 60s regulator. This regulator was actually used on sea hunt. Not this one, but this model was used on sea hunt. It's a tilt valve as well, and excellent, or no, this is not a tilt valve. I thought it was, but it is not a tilt valve, but excellent. Sportsways made fantastic gear, very heavy, very well made, chrome first stage and second stage. Metal clamp to hold the mouthpiece on, a little bit unusual. Peirce button on it and so on, and new inbox. This was called the Sport Diver. They had several different models. I want to show you just a couple more quickly, and you'll see some examples of what you should get. Now here's an example here. This as well as Voit. Voit was bought by Swimaster, and then Swimaster was purchased by AMF. They're a very large American company. So there you are. If you were looking for some Swimaster regulators, there's a couple of regulators. This is the MR12 regulator in an original box, never been opened. This is the first time it's ever been touched. There you go, MR12 regulator, famous regulator used in training exercises and by hundreds and hundreds of divers. In fact, I think that Mares, the designation for MR12 was acquired by Mares somehow. I think that they still make an MR12 model. Usually if it's new in box, it comes with instructions and all that kind of neat stuff. This one, I notice, even has a Voit pressure gauge on it. So another MR12, different model on there. So that's the kind of thing you can expect if you buy a regulator NIB. Often you get the warranty cards, all that kind of neat stuff, which not a big deal if you're going to use it, but if you're a collector, that stuff is really neat. It adds to its value. One more, last one. This is kind of neat. Nemrod. Many of you may not have heard of Nemrod, but Nemrod was actually a very popular brand in North America. Strangely enough, it was made in Spain. And this is a Meteor, okay, regulator. New inbox, NIB. Let's take a peek. Why did I pull this one? I had dozens of these. Why did I pull this one out? I pulled this one up because this is really interesting. Even laying in the box is interesting, but look at this. That's the second stage. There's the first stage. Oh boy, they made nice stuff. Yeah, Nemrod made really nice stuff, scuba stuff. So here's your first stage. It went on to the valve, and it's kind of interesting because it had one of those regulator-mounted J valves. So if you were traveling, and as you travel around the world and renting tanks at your destination, very often those places would only have K valves. And as everybody in the 60s and 70s knew, you had to have a J valve. Only idiots would die with a K valve. So what you would do is you would purchase one of these regulators, which had a built-in J valve on the regulator. So you put your regulator onto the K valve on the tank, and now you had a J valve. J valve, by the way, if you haven't seen all my episodes, means there's a reserve, a constant reserve on it. But look at the second stage on this beautiful regulator. Oops. Look at the second stage. My goodness gracious, can you imagine putting this into your mouth? It worked well, but it's a great big, it looks like a great big clumsy thing. It really wasn't all that clumsy. But as often was the case in the 60s, it had a neck strap for some reason in the 60s. We were deathly afraid of losing a regulator falling out of our mouth. Now we know it's not a big deal. So there was a neck strap on there, went around your neck, and chrome body, look it in there, and a big rubber faceplate. You could push on it anywhere. Just a beautiful, beautiful regulator. And something else that you often used to get in the old days, not so much anymore, used to get repair instructions on the regulator, and often a breakdown, how to fix it, how to get the warranty, and sometimes a catalog, and all this stuff was really, really neat. I don't know if there's a parts breakdown in here. They often did. There you go, parts breakdown. You don't get that today when you buy your new regulator. So if the mouthpiece breaks, or the high pressure seat, or any of the bits and pieces in the regulator, you could send it off to Nemrod and get the O-ring and the seat and everything else. Pretty neat stuff. Explains the whole operation. So that's what NIB means, and it is something that as you're thinking about picking up some scuba gear, regulators in particular, for your own use or for collecting, now you understand what NIB means and how it can be important. The box is valuable, and it means the regulator is probably good too. Anyway, I hope there's something of interest in there to you, and I'm going to talk some more about the proper way to buy vintage gear, to be sure you get good vintage gear that you can actually use. Talk to you again soon. Alec Peirce from Vintage Scuba.